Hi, I'm Connie Shirelli. Welcome to the beautiful area of Adams Avenue West. I'm on my way to a great restaurant, Cueva Bar, to meet the owner and the incredibly talented Chef Oz Blackcollar. Oz started cooking at the tender age of 6 when his mom taught him to cook poached eggs as the safest way to cook his favorite breakfast ingredient. Oz's passion for cooking delicious food, the lifelong dream of owning his own business, and the commitment to exceptional customer service led Oz and his wife Joanna to open Cueva Bar in 2010.
Hey!
Hi!
How's it going?
Excellent, how are you?
Good, welcome to Cueva Bar.
Thank you.
Shall we go in?
Absolutely.
After you.
Okay.
Follow me right over here.
Okay.
Are you ready to get cooking?
I am so ready.
Let's go.
Okay. So what are we cooking today?
So today we're cooking a sope topped with roasted carrots and covered with our house mole sauce.
Ooh, sounds good.
Yeah, so we start by putting a little bit of oil in our hands. That way the masa doesn't stick to our hands.
Okay.
And we start with a golf size sort of masa ball. And the way we do it in Mexico is with the hands. So you work a little bit of this motion to make a handmade tortilla, sort of tortilla. Once you have a little formed tortilla, then you start giving it edges or crust, like a little crust. And at that point, you have a sope. So once we have the sope, we don't fry, we don't have a fryer at Cueva. So everything that we do is either cooked on the pan or oven baked. So to bake it, you just put it on our baking sheet, lift up the edges just a little more. And what it does is it holds the sauce inside or anything that you want to put in there. After we have the sope, it's almost like a Mexican English muffin, right?
Okay.
And goes to the oven. But while that is cooking, what we're going to do is get the remaining of our garnishings ready. So I'm going to slice some chives. And what the chives is just a personal touch. You know, every chef has their own ingredients they use for garnishing. I like to use chives because it's a mild onion flavor and it also adds green color. So in the sope, we'll have a nice deep brown from the mole, cotija cheese, for extra, just for a touch of saltiness. So cotija cheese is a South American, Central American cheese, and it's a little aged, so it gets a little salty, and it's crumbled, so it looks pretty cool. And also, I made what we call a mole dust. So mole dust is crushed banana chips and garlic chips, and once I mix them, I add a little bit of paprika for a mild orangey red color. So again, this is extra flavor, but also it makes it look pretty nice.
Okay.
All right, so for the chives, what happens if you don't have a sharp knife and if you just do this, it sort of makes the chive bleed.
Okay.
It's juice, so then it's not, you know, it gets a little wilted. So we want to avoid wilting the chive by doing this kind of serrating, swinging motion. And then another tip for those who are watching, when you're slicing with a very, I mean, it doesn't matter what knife you're using, you need to do, what do you call this, like a claw. So everything that you're holding, you need to hold it like a claw to protect from chopping your fingertips. Because those are very easy accidents to, you know, in the kitchen.
So Chef Oz, what's the story with how you came up with the name Cueva Bar?
Cueva Bar, it's a, so my wife and I traveled to Mexico before we moved to San Diego. And while visiting my parents, we went to my parents' cabin up in the mountain in northeast Mexico. And the name of the cabin, it's La Cueva del Oso. La Cueva del Oso means the bear's cave. My father's friends call him Big Bear. And that's how the name of Cueva Bar came. We were finishing everything on the business plan, and the last thing was a name. And Joanna, my wife, and I were like, well, what is a good name? And then I suggested, well, you know, my dad has taught me a lot of what I do now, and he's my father figure, and I respect and look up a lot to him. So why do we use Cueva? Because of the cabin. You know, the name was so fresh in our minds that we started just playing with the part of Cueva. And then we were like, oh, Cueva Lounge, no, that doesn't sound good. Cueva whatever, no, that doesn't sound good either. And eventually, both of us said Cueva Bar together, and that kind of felt really good. Once we got the Cueva Bar name, we started thinking about the reason why we do food and why we wanted to do a restaurant. And we compared it to what humans, the cavemen used to do back in the day after a day of hunting and, basically making a living for themselves. They would gather inside the cave for shelter and for food. They would gather around the fire. At least that's what I know from the books of history. And they would just be human, sit down and around the fire, cook whatever they had gathered from hunting, and that was it. So Cueva is something that really resonated with us. This is our house mole that we use in a few of our dishes here at Cueva, obviously including the one that we're tasting today. We make our mole here in house. It takes us about 2 days. It's a process of roasting, pan frying, and then combining all the elements together and then cooking them down for a whole day of cooking. So there is dry nuts, dry fruits, dry chiles, fresh garlic, all kinds of spices. I don't use the already processed chocolate. What I use is the cocoa nibs. And then I sweeten it just enough to cut through the acidity of the peppers. And I think the soap is ready. So let me get that out. Yep. The sope is done. Roasted carrots are done. And by the way, this is a combination of typical elements, but not quite a typical way to serve in this dish.
Okay.
And yeah, shall we get to plating? So we put a little bit, just a little dollop of mole sauce in the bottom.
That smells so good.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
Can you smell the spices?
Yes.
So this is a secret I learned from other chefs. If I didn't know better, I would just put the soap in. The soap will be flying everywhere. So a little bit on the sauce keeps it in place. Oh. And then you get artistic with the carrots. Put a few carrot or one carrot over to the other. And then the final touch, or semi-final touch actually, we use about 2 scoops of our mole sauce.
Oh my, that looks good.
And what do you smell the cinnamon in there?
Yes.
So
it smells amazing.
This dish, by the time we put it on the window, it smells all over the restaurant actually. So the order to place this is the white first. You see the contrast? Mm-hmm. And then the red on top of the white, otherwise the red just kind of blends in with the brown really easy. And for our final touch, would you want to help me? Just sprinkle a little bit of those chives in there.
I think I can handle this.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Looks amazing.
Oh, yes, it does.
All right.
How'd you find this great location?
It was a thing of destiny. It was meant to be. The same day that I lost my job here in San Diego, I was working in human resources. That same day, I happened to be driving by this street on Adams Avenue, and I saw the sign that said for rent, and that was like my sign.
That brisket looks amazing. Tell me about it.
So the brisket, we do a dried rub of black pepper and cinnamon, and then we braise it with red wine. The way I learned about cooking brisket was from my mom, who learned it from her family who got to stay on this side of the border a while ago. And so in Mexico, we live about 3 hours close to the border from Texas. So this is a little bit of a Texas-inspired way to cook brisket as far as I learned it from my mom. And so yeah, what we do is we braise it and then we finish it in the oven. It gets a little hot, a little crispy, and then it just soaks up that mole sauce really nice. And then we finish it with the mole sauce, about 2 scoops. That should make good mixing of the masa, the brisket, and the sauce. So you see this is a little bit of like a barbecue plate, right? Like a barbecue sauce plate, but obviously all this is very Mexican inspired. To finish the dish, we use crumbled cotija. Cotija cheese is a Central American cheese. It's been aged, so it adds a little touch of salt right at the end with every bite, but also the color contrast. Followed by the mole dust. The mole dust I call it like that because it has elements that go usually on mole. So what we have is dry banana chips, dry garlic chips, and then we we grind them together and add a little touch of paprika to give it that bright red color. And the very last touch, if you want to be my guest, and
May I?
yes, please put a touch of chives right over there.
Ooh.
Boom, and that's what we do. All right, ready to dig in?
I am. That looks amazing.
Thank you. Enjoy.
I will. Thank you. Oh, you guys don't know what you're missing. Delicious.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you, Chef. I'll be back.
I appreciate your visit.
My pleasure.
Show me the mole. www.mole.com. Guacamole. Show me the mole. Holy moly! Mole, 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 mole. Show me the mole!
What is mole?